I'll begin with the good things about this movie. Okay, now for the bad.
Dramatic pause.
You have a movie with 3 of the greatest monsters ever created, and somehow things go horribly wrong.
Hugh Jackman's not a monster.
I mean, Kate Beckinsale's...
She's monstrously sexy.
Man, Ryan's on brand here. Luckily for Mr. Jackman that he has the X-Men franchise to live off of, and lucky for Kate Beckinsale that she's a hottie.
Wow.
Exactly.
Not one character seemed genuine or interesting. It's going to be one long summer movie season.
This is ruining the whole season?
The whole season.
Right from here. That was a 1-star review on IMDb. Hello and welcome. We are Spoilers Intended, a podcast about series and films. I'm Steven, joined as always by Andrew.
Do we have to keep doing this, Gabriel?
And Ryan.
I'm but a man and I want to live.
Kicking it off with some great impressions of the 1-star and these phenomenal impressions.
I was quickly trying to think, how does Frankenstein sound? It's like, wow.
These powerful quotes from the movie. We're doing 2004's Van Helsing.
Dramatic pause.
Dramatic pause. I got pause for emphasis, all right?
Yes, okay.
So, real quick, early impressions. Let's hear them.
I like this movie as a guilty pleasure.
I thought I would, but I don't think I did. It was pretty bad.
Wow, this is actually quite the swing. So I hated this film when it came out in theaters. I loved it on this
Really?
rewatch.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, I remember really not liking it in theaters and going into it this time going like, I'm just going to, watch this as like a fun, and I was like, this is just bad.
So I think, I remember watching it in theaters. This is the second time I've seen it.
Yeah.
And watching it in theaters, I walked out of it and I was like, I vaguely feel that they kind of got what they wanted to do.
Walked out at the end, right?
Yeah, walked out at
Not
the
in the
end.
middle.
But they didn't have they just didn't have it. Like they didn't have the it factor in this movie.
I have a very succinct way to describe my feelings at the end because I struggled with this, right? I think when you look at a movie like this with bad CG, right? I can tell you another movie that's got adventure, bad CG, and tons more charisma and like better characters and better character development.
The Mummy.
The Mummy.
Yeah.
Yes. It's like
Wow,
at the end of it.
super on brand because guess what?
What?
This is directed by Steven Sommers, known for directing
The Mummy.
What are you doing, Steven?
Well, no. Okay, so
Sommers?
I actually think
right here. What are you talking about?
and I know we're going to get into it, but I
Yeah.
actually think that 3/4 of this film are serviceable, and then you have the final quarter of the film, which removes any kind of charm that existed in the
I
film.
just pictured in my head the box quote: 3/4 of this film are serviceable. ... Andrew Knuckles, spoilers intended.
Put that on the poster. I'm on board. I'm less harsh.
The critics agree.
Andrew, as Andrew's going.
No,
Three-quarters of this film are serviceable.
Well, so that actually sounds a lot harsher than I feel. What I really mean to say is like I enjoyed about 3/4 of this film. And then you get to the end and you're just like, what are we doing here?
I think the first most of the film, 75, 80% of it
pretty solid.
Is good. And it's holding together really well. And the reason why you walk out of it going, oof, is because the ending
knows
of it,
what it is.
Yes.
It is.
Yes.
But I don't think it's executing it
No,
well.
I agree. And we'll get into
Let's
this.
see. I disagree there. We'll get into this.
Give us
We're
some
jumping
numbers.
ahead.
All right, so
give us numbers.
Let's go over a little info here. So, quick synopsis: the famed monster hunter Van Helsing is sent to Transylvania to stop Count Dracula, who is using Dr. Frankenstein's research and a werewolf for nefarious purposes. How else can you use a werewolf, people?
I mean, like maybe I don't know.
Yeah, see, that's what I thought.
Field labor. I don't know. Probably pull a good plow. I don't know.
But he has to do it all at night.
I know. Hey,
Under the full moon.
and then during the day, you can do other stuff.
You only get one day of the month to pull that plow.
But what a day.
Doggone good.
I will definitely refute that because the movie definitely takes
Definitely
place over
refutes that.
multiple days and there are multiple werewolves.
Yes.
So, you're wrong. And it's okay.
A gasp across the other two hosts.
Anyways, so this is written and directed by Stephen Sommers, who's did
The
the
Mummy.
Mummy and other Mummy sequels.
Mummy Returns, I think, or Mummy 2.
All the mummies, just the mummies.
Mummy and he did Scorpion King?
I don't think
Mummy
he
and
directed it, but I
Scorpions.
think he produced.
Okay, that doesn't count.
Yeah. He also did G.I. Joe: Rise of Cobra.
So, okay, so he likes campy films.
He does.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this film stars Hugh Jackman, Kate Beckinsale, Richard
Roxburgh.
Sorry, autocorrect wanted me to say Roxbury. Thanks, Apple. Shuler Hensley, David Wenham, Kevin O'Connor, Elena Anaya. Oh, Lord. Apple, what are you doing?
Do it.
It's not that. It's Sylvia Kalaka.
I think it's Coloca, probably.
It changed her name to Collocation, which I know is wrong. Josie Moran and many more. Music by Alan Silvestri.
Yeah.
Yeah, podcast favorite.
One of the only redeeming factors of this film.
For real.
Front to back, the
Yeah.
music bangs.
The music
Yeah.
does bang.
It does.
So this film was made on a budget of $170 million.
In 2004.
Oh, I thought it was 180.
Do we know what the budget of Lord of the Rings was?
No, but you can look it up real
I'll
quick.
find out.
Yeah.
So
I'll go look up Fellowship of
there's
the
actually a
Ring.
tie-in there too, versus the $300 million worldwide box office that it collected. So the plan was for there to be a series of Van Helsing films.
Oh, sure.
And after opening weekend, that plan just went away.
Yeah.
Imagine making a film in 2001 for $93 million and being considered one of the greatest films of all time.
Now, I will say though, we all know that Peter Jackson didn't pay any of those people anything to do that film.
New Zealanders just showed up out of the kindness
Right,
of their
yeah.
heart.
And imagine making Van Helsing in 2004
For double the price.
Double the price.
Hugh Jackman and Kate Beckinsale probably commanded a pretty hefty salary.
Was
I didn't look it
Underworld
up, but
before or after Van Helsing?
She had already done at least
right
one
before.
Underworld.
Yeah, she was having a tear with
It was like
vampires.
03. This was
because
04.
he actually, Stephen Sommers actually didn't want to reach out to Kate Beckinsale. She was actually casted last because he's like, she'd
said,
be perfect for this part. But
I'm scared, but she's a real vampire,
She's not
isn't
going to do
she?
another vampire film. And then he apparently like talked to her agent. Her agent was like, no, send it along. And she was like, yeah, sign me up. She knows what side of the toast she's buttered on.
Yeah.
Hey, I mean,
Man.
it's Kate Beckinsale.
Kate Beckinsale and buttered toast. Two things Ryan loves.
All right, well, let's get into some spoilers-free thoughts here. We were having a discussion there before we got into that.
But
Yeah.
I really do think that this movie is like, okay, so this is where I kind of land.
Yeah.
I think they tried to be campy and fun.
Mm-hmm.
And then also be serious, and I think they straddled the line too much.
They don't really do either one.
They needed to either go one direction or the other.
Yeah.
Where they needed to either lean more heavily into the camping comedy or lean a little bit more into the serious storytelling.
See,
Yeah.
I this is where I disagree here, and I think it's the Bollywood and Tollywood run of films that we've looked at that have kind of changed my opinion here. I think for most of the film, they're actually nailing it pretty hard and pretty well. It's the finale is just
It's terrible.
such a cluster.
It's so bad.
that you come away from it with a bad taste, right? It's like you're like, oh, this drink is really
like,
good,
honestly,
and then
like-
you stop drinking it, and you're like, oh, the aftertaste is
it
horrible.
opens up really strong. It also like carries the pacing pretty decently well.
It's pretty well paced because this is just over 2 hours and 10 minutes
Yeah.
in runtime, and it feels like a 2 hour, like an adventure action film about 2 hours long.
And I will say that, I mean, like, obviously the CG definitely has not aged
the
very well.
CG
Let me
is
before we get into the CG.
rough.
Yeah.
Let me just pause because I disagree with some of the things we've said, and I was giving you time to finish.
okay.
yeah.
It's okay.
I
You
want
can
to
have
just
an
jump in
opinion.
now
It can
before
also
we
be
move
wrong.
past it because I do want to talk about the CG at some point. Keeping it spoiler free, my problem was that it feels really long. It doesn't feel. I
No,
paused
I'm not going to say it doesn't feel long. I'm saying the first it is paced well for like the first half of the film.
Sure, but I had like 2 or 3 moments when I was watching it where I go, "How long is this? Is it still going? How are we not at the finale yet? Like this is taking forever."
I still think it's the finale that
The finale
goes
definitely
off the
tanks it.
rails.
We all are on the same page with the finale.
Oh, it's
okay?
terrible.
There's no arguing that. What I'm trying to say is, for me, it's the comedy from Faramir. What's his name?
Carl.
Carl. Yeah,
It's
him as the comedic
David
relief
Liam.
doesn't really land ever for me. There wasn't a single
I love
joke
Carl.
that they did that I went, ha ha ha. I'll go, oh, okay.
Well, so and I think part of that is just because the comedy just isn't that funny.
Thank you. Yes, that'll do it every time.
Yeah.
But I think it's on top of that. It's compounded by like that Hugh Jackman and Carl, like Van Helsing and Carl, don't have
They don't have a ton of chemistry.
rapport that they need for it to just
Man.
land for me.
I'm about to say, what's funny is I am getting total opposite from y'all. I actually thought that their interactions were really good.
No, see, again,
Well, so-
completely disagree on this side. Like the same thing happens though. Like so just to finish round up my point, right? I think the first 3/4 of the movie is doing okay. I won't say good.
serviceable. Yeah.
It's serviceable. Yeah, it's serviceable. But like Kate Beckinsale and Hugh Jackman, they don't have a lot of chemistry.
No, I will say they don't have any
Now,
chemistry at all.
that's
Their
the rough
romance
part.
is a wet blanket. It is just
Yeah.
there's
It's
nothing.
whatever.
It's-
right?
We're the
like
two
planks
leads.
of wood going
Yeah.
at
Yeah,
it.
we're the two
It's
leads.
clack, clack,
You're
clack.
hot. I'm hot.
And
Yeah.
then I think Richard Roxburgh as Dracula is like a mixed bag of like there are some
Oh, no,
scenes
no.
he
That
does
is very good.
Let me finish my opinion.
No,
you got to talk for like 10 minutes about how great this is. Let me tell you
Has
you're
this
wrong.
been 10 minutes long?
I'm like 1 minute in. I got 9 more. Richard Roxburgh as Dracula, I did not care for by the end of it. At first, I was like, okay, I kind of see what they're going for, and it's for me, it's like scene by scene. There was one scene with him where I'm like, oh, he did pretty good there, and the next one I'm like, okay, that's not how I would have played that at all. They didn't have a better take of that. Like that was what they're going with.
When he's being menacing, he's great.
Yeah.
Because he plays that character very well. Because he
Yeah.
was the Duke in Moulin Rouge.
Moulin Rouge, yeah.
Yeah. And he was that blonde dude in Mission Impossible too.
He was, yeah.
It was, yes.
But whenever you get into kind of like a little bit more of like the general dialogue where he has to exposit something,
Yeah.
it's just like, okay.
Right. Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you. That's
See,
and-
I think all the interactions between him and the brides
Oh.
are really, really over the
It's-
top,
it's tough,
really
yeah.
camp, and those are the parts where it's just like, okay, this is a little much.
Yeah.
but
But I think-
the bits where he is menacing,
Being Dracula.
or like him talking to Hugh Jackman, he's a really good casting for this. Like he's nailing a lot of that.
Yeah.
I think
agree.
it's kind of like what Andrew was saying of where, like, for me at least, it's like the they need to pick a lane because it's the back and forth of like, you're not staying in the menacing lane long enough for me to actually be menaced or like be like,
Yeah.
oh, watch out for this guy. And you're not staying in the camp lane long enough for me to be like, oh, this is hilarious. This is funny. It's that back and forth and never fully planting a foot
So
in
you're
either
not
side.
you're not building up enough tension for the comedy to cut it.
Yeah.
and you're not
Right.
having enough comedy for the tension to give you the
And
whiplash
that's,
of
that's really what
Yeah.
what I think holds the movie back is just because, like, honestly, the set design is really good. I actually like the design of like Frankenstein's monster, and just like the actual visual aesthetic is quite good.
So what's funny is I thought y'all were gonna bash on a specific part. I thought we were gonna open this episode and y'all are both gonna light into it. The opening to the film that's in black and white.
Well, okay,
no,
I
that's
have
fine.
I have thought on that, and so because you know me, I have harped so badly on
Casino Royale was on my mind watching
yeah,
it.
but this looked better in black and white than Casino Royale.
It looked so much better.
Yeah.
and I was like, what did they do?
Because it was shot on film and Casino Royale was probably shot digitally and
Well,
it's
they-
just got
they-
the
that
noise.
that actually does
have-
make sense.
I was going to say that it
Yeah.
almost felt like they leaned into a little bit, which I think it was after this film, the Sin City, like the high contrast black and white.
But well, they had the kind of like traditional silver kind of sheen to them.
Well,
Yeah.
also I think they have kind of, and they have a like a cinematographic. What the frick?
Cinematographer?
No, but close. Put graphic at the end of it instead of photographer.
Cinematographic?
Whatever. I can't do it. I don't know what it is.
That's not even a word.
What are you trying to say?
They have a precursor vision for what they're doing. They're replicating the 30s.
Oh,
Universal
yes.
monster.
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
They have a specific look they're going for.
They have a reference.
That's not the word I was looking for, but it's whatever. It's fine.
A cinematographic.
Cinematographic. Yeah, whatever.
Cinematographic.
Whatever.
But no, I know what you're
There-
saying.
there's a starting
have
point,
they have
yeah.
a point to say this is what we're imitating,
Yeah.
so they can make something that works. Whereas Casino Royale's like, oh, I'll just make it black and white. They probably shot that in color. Make it black and white. It look
Almost
cool.
like there's no black and white films that existed before that they could have referenced.
I seriously have, as someone who loves Casino Royale, no clue what they were going for with the black and
Oh, it's terrible.
I honestly
like,
think they shot it in color. They're like, you know what? We should make this black and white.
But the problem is it's so noisy. It's noisier than the rest of the movie in color. So it's
Yeah.
not even like just making it black and white. It's like they added a noise filter to it.
you got to put that grain on there.
We're
But
getting
you
off
know,
of Casino
for
Royale.
Van Helsing,
Back
it
to Van
looked
Helsing.
great. And I was like, oh yeah, they did do the opening section to be black and white.
I totally forgotten about that when that hit. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, this is a good little callback to a lot of like their classic Universal monsters.
The only thing I would push back on with the set designs is there are a few that look really cheap, that look kind of like a stage play and not a movie.
We definitely have a couple of big sweeping scenes. You're just like, that's all CGI.
Oh, yeah. It's not those,
it's
but
not holding up super well either.
I can kind of agree with that, but I think the actual like visual aesthetic and design was quite well done.
Yeah.
It's pretty cohesive.
Yeah.
You have that.
You can
feel
definitely
of,
tell that they put a lot of effort into a lot of those aspects. It's just they just could never decide on how to make the writing work.
I think too, and this is the last thing I'm trying to steer clear of spoilers here, is like the plot feels unnecessarily complex by the time you get to the end. You're like, so wait, there was a moment where I go, my wife was watching, she goes, so hold on, what's the plan he's doing? Why is it? I'm like, honestly, we got to wait to the next scene because I don't remember, because she was the same way. She saw it in theaters.
Yeah.
Maybe has seen it on TBS, a piece of it, but she hasn't sat down to watch it, and we sat down to watch it. And yeah, she was like, why? I don't remember it being this complicated. Like,
yeah, it was very like again. The third act is terrible.
No, it's so bad.
It's not
brutally
good.
bad. Yeah. It would have every Marvel complaint possible, except even Marvel would look at this.
Marvel
like, you can't do that.
Way better than this.
My general thoughts on the CG, to keep it spoiler free, is that like this movie was wildly ambitious for what was actually possible in 2004.
So watching this with my wife, she was like, "Is all of this shot in the dark? It's so dark."
Oh yeah,
there's a lot of dark.
I was like, they've got some CG they need to hide. She's like, what are you talking about? That doesn't. Oh,
yeah. Well, it's wild because this is the year Spider-Man 2 came out.
Yeah,
which has pretty good CG compared to the first Spider-Man.
I haven't seen it in a while to really have a feel for like a modern feel for
Well, so I with that kind of like comparison, it's kind of very similar to anime. I have to get my reference in to where
everybody at home, take your shot for all those playing the Andrew drinking game.
Most I'll say like broadcast like seasonal anime. They all relatively have the same budget. It's how you utilize your production schedule and your talent that you have on staff to get these really good shows or really bad shows because you mismanage their time or whatever. So like there is always a comparison because the technology existed for both of these films during filming, but at the same time
it's two different studios.
Yeah, it's two different studios. If there was studio meddling, I don't know. Steven may have an idea for trivia.
I didn't have any kind of trivia on that type of meddling.
Yeah, so it's kind of one of those things where it's like we don't know what went on behind the scenes. So I'm like, you're like, well, there's like Spider-Man 2 had the best CGI of 2004. But I'm not saying you're saying that, but like.
But I'll say this about Spider-Man 2 is I think it had way less CG than this. Actually,
again, this was very ambitious.
This movie, they were like, "Don't worry about it. We need a mountain. It'll be there. It'll be there. That'll be there."
And that's kind of the like they're high on the ability to do stuff.
Yeah.
To where like at this point in time in like the early aughts, they're just like, oh, we can do anything with CGI.
Yeah,
CGI opens so many avenues.
Of Blade 2. Because on the second one, there's like this one specific fight scene with Blade where he like is live action and then obviously becomes a rubber like looking CG figure. Very similar, that same feel to it, and it's like
about that in a while.
It starts happening, and it's like for a fact when they were on set, they were like, "It's fine, it'll look good in post." And then when they got to post, they were like, "Well, we have to put the movie out, so
this scene has to be in here. It's necessary for the plot.
This is our lot in life,
It's only like 25 frames. Just it'll be fine. They won't notice.
No one will notice.
The only thing people talk about.
Everyone laughs in the theater. Oh no. But yeah, this movie was very ambitious with the CG.
I think it was. But I do think it still has some charm. And again, I was a hater on this film coming out of the theaters and watching it for, again, only the second time now. I've never had a moment where I was like, I should watch Van Helsing. It's kind of a guilty pleasure. It's got some elements to it.
It definitely has some charm in there.
Yeah, more than I thought it had. I thought it deserved, actually.
I feel like the problem for me is if this movie feels like it is more in conversation with like League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Oh, it's 100%.
Absolutely.
It's 100% in the same conversation.
Now, I'll say this.
Then it is with The Mummy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it needed to be in a conversation with The Mummy.
Terrible film.
Sure.
Terrible. We're gonna have to do it at some point.
I don't remember what.
No.
Yes.
Please no.
What studio did Leave Extraordinary Gentlemen? Is it Universal?
I'm pretty sure it's Universal.
I think so too.
Could have been, yeah.
But either way, they were like,
It was like a year before
we got
this,
this Leave
honestly.
Extraordinary Gentlemen coming up.
Yeah.
We gotta be ready to cash in on that money.
I'm pretty sure it came out after.
I thought it came out before. I thought it came out.
I think it's
No, maybe it was
03.
like 2003. Yeah,
it's
you're
03.
right. You're right.
I'll look it up.
But they were like, man, we're gonna have this big hit tentpole Leave Extraordinary come out. We need to hit that money. Let's kind of lean into this aesthetic. And then they were making this, and that came out. And they're like, oh no, well we're already there.
Two things. It was 03.
Yeah.
But the other thing is searching it on IMDb when you're like League, it's like, you don't mean that movie. Here's League of Their Own, Justice League. I put of, and it's like
20,000 Leagues.
I put League of, and it gave me like 18 results that weren't it. And I was like, X, and it was like, are you sure you're searching for?
You must be 18 or older to check this box.
I had to
Parental
get
permission.
extra O in before it was like, this?
We don't have monsters in our closets. We don't have monsters
Speak
under
for
our
yourself.
bed. No, what we've got is content. Content everywhere. And we're begging you to come and take it from us so we can sleep at night at spoilersintendedpodcast.com.
We haven't slept in weeks. Release us from this prison.
Well, you can join us in Discord, I guess, which is also its own version of prison.
Yes.
We have channels where we can talk about Van Helsing.
We have a dedicated Van Helsing channel.
I'm going to make it right after this
Do
recording.
it, you coward. Do it. We also have 2 social medias, counting 1 and 2, Facebook and Instagram. Please follow us over there. Like what we post. We'd love it to talk with you and hang out. We post stuff over there like what we're going to watch and review and just fun stuff. Please follow us. Please.
Oh man, I could listen to that guitar.
I know it's such a good soundtrack. Alan Silvestri,
Yeah.
like they were like, "Hey, we have this really not great film." He's like, "Don't worry, I'll save it."
No,
I'll make you a banger.
I feel like it's more like, dude, we got this banger film. And he's like, I got a banger soundtrack for you then. He goes to the theater. Are you kidding me?
What is this?
You wasted my Spanish guitar on this?
He stands up, throws his popcorn to the ground. Good day, sir.
I mean, the soundtrack for this is killer.
It is very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's I have no complaints about the music.
Yeah.
All right, well, we have passed through the icy portal of spoilers.
There it is.
We're into it now.
Yep.
No turning back.
I'm actually curious how much trivia is on this film because it feels like a dense enough film with like enough like just random stuff that's in it.
So there's an interesting mix, right? There's not a ton of production trivia. So there's some basic stuff, you know.
So
Like,
the production was also mediocre.
like there's some basic stuff like during,
Nothing of interest happened here.
during one of the stunt scenes, Hugh Jackman broke one of the extras' hands.
Nice.
okay.
On purpose.
Yo, you know, he looked that dude in the eye as he did it too.
Australia rules. Crack. I'm the Wolverine, mate. Crack.
Did X-Men Last Stand come out before this?
No,
X-Men-
absolutely not.
So
Really?
there was a trivia on this.
Last Stand was like way later. This is 03. The
There's
first one came
there's
out
a trivia
in
on this.
2000. Oh.
He actually filmed one of the final scenes of X2 during a day off from filming Van Helsing.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So it was like he left this set and went over, and they're like, "All right, bub, suit up."
Yeah.
Just walked across the studio.
Yeah, I just walked across the street.
Yeah, just across the lot, probably.
Yeah.
Well, Fox and Universal. I don't know
Fox.
how close they are.
I don't know.
No idea.
Like my vision of like how
Hollywood.
how Hollywood studios works is
Just
that
they're separated by a hallway.
Yeah, it's basically Capstone Dance to where they just have like this big studio row
There's
of all
just
sound stages.
warehouses, and they each have
Yeah.
their own banner on
Yeah.
it.
It's probably exactly what it is, honestly.
So there is some fun trivia, like Elena Anaya's first scene is when she confronts them as they enter Budapest.
Okay.
Okay.
And she was a little nervous about the scene. And so Stephen Summers told her, because it was the first part of the shoot, she hasn't really, it's later in the movie, she's not really in the groove. Stephen Summers, don't worry, we'll have someone there to spot you with your lines. So at 5:30 in the morning, when she's shooting this, the person there who's helping her spot lines is Hugh Jackman.
Okay.
He's a bro. He just, he's there playing opposite
He's a
her.
professional.
Yeah, he says his line. She looks at him. He says her line. She says it back to him. He says his line.
Oh, no. How embarrassing.
I don't know if that's actually how it played out.
Tell me what to say, please.
So the initial fight sequence between Van Helsing, Anna, and the brides takes place on the Court of Miracles, which is the same set where Frankenstein and Dracula from 1931, both films, were filmed.
Oh, that's cool.
cool.
That's actually part of the studio tour at Universal Studios Hollywood.
Oh,
wow. I assume it's still there.
That's actually really cool.
Right? That's pretty, this set is built to last. It's been around for 70-something years at this point, man.
Wow.
I'm not really sure you could count it as a fight with Anna, though. She kind of just runs around.
She does some stuff there.
I will say this about Kate Beckinsale's character in this. She doesn't really do anything.
No, so
It's
that
interesting because
I was gonna say that was my wife's biggest complaint by the end of the movie was she was like, she compared it to Zorro with Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Yeah.
She was like, Catherine Zeta-Jones' character does stuff.
She does. Yeah, she does.
She's like this. She just feels like she's supposed to be this tough. I'm also a monster hunter,
but she doesn't really do anything.
But then she's just the damsel in distress in most of these scenes instead of being like a Belmont in Castlevania.
She doesn't even kill the final bride.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She does. She has help. She has help.
She has help. That's the thing.
She does have help, but she does do it.
Yeah.
She does get a pretty good line too about instead of telling me what you're going to do, just do it.
Yeah.
Which is a riff from Good, Bad, and the Ugly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but again, it's so convoluted to get to that point.
Oh, no. Everything up to that. Look, you get one swinging on a rope for a coincidental save.
You don't get to do it twice. You do it with the same character.
Right out.
Yeah.
Right out.
Yeah.
So
the third act should just be a whole conversation.
Oh, exactly. It will. It will.
Yeah.
So I know here, this is related to trivia. We've talked about how modern movies you don't have the DVD sales.
Yeah.
And we've kind of speculated. Well, how much support is that really for a movie?
Yeah.
North American DVD sales for Van Helsing were $65 million in the first week.
I think that tracks. That's a lot.
That is more than half of the domestic box office revenue for its entire run.
Because, and this is the thing to remember though, it's like back then your option was see it in theaters or buy it or wait to rent.
And
right?
it didn't have good theatrical reviews, so a lot of people may have just held off and I'll catch it on DVD.
Well, because my wife and I, we were talking about because she was like, how much did that cost? And I was like, I bet it was a lot because of the amount of CG. Mm-hmm. And then we looked it up and I started to look at okay.
2 big stars in it.
Yeah. Well, I started to look at the box office returns from 2004. Just what was, the big stuff. It was like
Spider-Man 2.
Shrek 2 was the number one. Mm-hmm. Spider-Man 2 was behind that. Then it was Harry Potter.
Whichever Harry Potter.
That would be the third one.
Yes.
Probably.
Maybe
right.
fourth. No, it wouldn't be Goblet of Fire. Goblet of Fire 2005.
Second one.
So this is Prisoner of Azkaban.
Yeah.
It was Prisoner of Azkaban.
Which was, yeah.
So that one. But anyways, I was going down the list and Collateral with Tom Cruise and Jamie Foxx was I don't know, right behind Van Helsing. Mm-hmm. Van Helsing 15th and it was 16, 17. And it made 160 million at the American box office and then 300 something worldwide. Mm-hmm. I was in 2024, a movie like Collateral, just this small movie with it's about an assassin, would never make. They would make 30 million at the box office at best.
It'd be an
nowadays.
art house film.
Yeah. And I was I was just commenting. She's like, well, you think back then it was just the movies. Yeah. You didn't have any streaming. Mm-hmm. You didn't have anything to compete with.
If Disney had Aladdin in the vault, you couldn't even buy it.
Right.
Right? How rude.
Yeah.
But I did think that was interesting just because. Again, the film only made 300 million worldwide, and then the DVD hits, and that first week, boom, there's that injection of cash
immediately. Yeah. No, it was. I remember being that person that if I missed something in theater,
you just go buy
possibly picking. If it's I know I'm going to like it, I just couldn't find the time to go watch it. Picking it up, as soon as it releases on home or whatever.
So this held the record for the highest grossing vampire film. Took it away from Interview with the Vampire.
Even, I guess, Underworld?
Underworld probably didn't make 300 million.
Yeah. It took away from Interview with the Vampire, which was 94, I think.
Yeah.
And held it until 2008's Twilight.
Well, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
That blew it out.
Yeah, there's no competing with that.
Yeah, you can't fight the The Twihards.
No.
Twihards.
Twihards. Lord.
There's a dude on Instagram that does literal scene for scene reenactments of Twilight, and he puts the movie above him, so it's like a split screen, and he like dresses up as Bella and he dresses up as Edward. And like when he's saying the words, you're like, whoa, this is really bad.
It's a terrible dialogue.
Yeah.
So this is the first movie after Lord of the Rings to use this is all in caps, it's an abbreviation or acronym, the massive software CGI program that was developed for Lord of the Rings.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that would be because of Two Towers.
Right. I think it was for the Uruk-hai. Yeah.
Yeah.
So just a couple little minor last little bits. The crossbow, weighs 45 pounds.
Oh, that's pretty hefty.
That is chunky.
That's actually a chunk. Like, think about you watch Hugh Jackman turn and sling that thing around.
He's like, it's as heavy as a koala.
Well, he's just lucky that he was already
He's just coming
online
off of
for
the Wolverine. Yeah.
He's already jacked.
You know, it's funny too. I've actually seen comparison images of him now doing Wolverine stuff, and then him being Wolverine
the first movie,
like for the first
he was
movie.
just a dude.
He's just a
and
guy.
The second movie, he started ripping out.
He's in good shape in the first one, but he's not bulky.
Yeah,
he's
and then
like
this one, he's like ripped.
Yeah.
Oh, the older he's gotten, the more jacked he has gotten.
Yeah.
Huge jacked man.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, look at these jokes.
Last little
Don't
bit,
look at him, please.
Last little bit of trivia for you for
Look
just your weird surreal moment on set. So Shuler Hensley, who played Frankenstein's monster,
I am a man.
would sing to the kids on set in between takes to entertain them.
Why are there kids on set?
You didn't notice all the little Dorger?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So imagine that in between takes, it's a dude dressed up to be Frankenstein's monster, and these little goblin creatures sing around him while he sings to them to entertain him.
Dude, that sounds awesome.
That actually sounds pretty legit.
There needs to be behind the scenes of this because it'd be incredible.
So,
wow.
Okay, that actually kind of that's a good segue, just because like I think Frankenstein's monster was definitely like. There's a couple like story threads in this movie that I feel could have just been the movie
for sure.
And like you have like an entire character arc that you could elaborate with for Frankenstein's monster. You have the whole thing, like the backstory with Van Helsing actually being Gabriel, the right hand of God.
So was he an angel? Did they ever?
Yes,
that's
what is implied.
That's what they're presenting is that he is the Archangel Gabriel.
Presume they would get into it in future movies, is what they were probably thinking.
And I think that's kind of the problem that you run into when clearly they're like, okay, with Spider-Man has we have a second movie coming out for Spider-Man now.
Right. Yeah.
There's X-Men movies going.
Yeah,
so we can definitely turn this into something.
They were holding some stuff back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of one of the issues that you run into. And we also ran into this with The Acolyte, where you have
Hollywood
the showrunner, the directors, showrunners, writers, whoever, and they're like, well, we're going to get another movie out of this, and then it doesn't work, and now you just have
all these
kind of a
plot
mediocre storyline that could have been really strong if they would have just committed on one line.
So I think to your point here, they should have held more back. In that this movie almost has too many characters.
Yes.
If we really deep dove Van Helsing, Carl, Anna, her brother, and Dracula, we're probably fine. But because we have like the brides are added in, we have Frankenstein added in, we have all these pieces running around that are almost extraneous to it. Like the whole story for Frankenstein's monster and his humanity is actually a cool little line, but we don't get to follow it very far because
where would you fit it in?
Yeah. You got to put him on a cable and swim across a chasm.
Twice.
Well, I think for me too, not only does Frankenstein have like a compelling story, you know, and he's like a really well-designed character. I love the way he looks with his sloshing around.
And
he's got like
the
the glowing green heart. Like,
and when his head and his face pops open, then he puts it back together. I was like, this is so cool.
It's a really good design.
It to me stands in stark contrast of the CG of Dr. Jekyll or Mr. Hyde in the opening, where it's like just bad CG.
Ain't great.
And it's like, y'all got one dude on set, big guy, in makeup, looks great, and then went, let's just CG this.
I think because they wanted to make him more like an orangutan.
Well,
like,
they again ambitious with what they could actually do.
They drew a lot from Andre the Giant for his look.
Yeah,
He has
kinda
a lot of that look.
He does, yeah.
So funnily enough,
he also talks a little bit like him too.
a bit, yeah. You're talking about him. You have this one guy on set, big, he's dressed up well, right?
Yeah.
Shuler Hensley was actually the stand-in for the CGI overlay of Mr. Hyde in this.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
that makes sense. Yeah.
But apparently he was voiced by I think Robbie Coltrane. Robbie Coltrane, yeah. Hagrid.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But I mean, it's again, like I try not to like knock the movie on taking shots with trying stuff. And again, like not everything's going to hit. Like, I mean, we obviously got Attack of the Clones with George Lucas.
Sure.
But then we got Revenge of the Sith as a follow-up. And again, I know you guys don't really like it. I like it a lot. And I
It's
thought it did a
definitely
good
better than
job.
Attack of the Clones.
But that's kind of the thing is like
leagues ahead.
they, this was definitely around the time where I think that if they took this movie and they remade it, not even like verbatim, but like basically the general outline with the same styling and everything like that, now it would go a lot better just because you have the technology that can really support
definitely
these more CGI centric roles.
For me, I think the CGI has no weight to it. Everything feels rubbery.
Yes.
There's no momentum. It's like they had turned the corner on like a fidelity level of like, hey, hair looks like hair now, and like things are like on that side, but the physical momentum and like physics of it weren't caught up yet.
Well, we have the moment with the prequels, right, where it was CGI is far enough along, I can do anything I want, and then you have rubber bouncy ball Yoda, and here you still have some rubber bouncy balls.
Yeah.
I mean, when Hugh Jackman swings down to snatch her off the dance floor, he straight up they have a Framer 3 in there where they're just like, that looks terrible. Just remove him. No one will know. There's nobody on that rope for part of that swing. And it's just this rope.
I thought it was a glitch when that happened. I literally rewound it. I was like, what was that? And he's gone. There's nothing on the rope.
He's just not on
And then there's another on that same scene where he's coming up where it's like, it's this badly CG'd Hugh Jackman face where they couldn't even take a live action version, and he's like, and it looks like a PS2 game going like, and you're like, oh no.
Before that sequence happens, they have the trapeze artist swing straight at the screen. You're like, that didn't look good.
Yeah.
And they do it again. It's like, no, that wasn't. Don't
repeat
twice.
it. Yeah.
Well, so the thing is too, I actually really like that scene outside of the trapeze stuff or whatever.
Everything about the setting there
is cool.
Oh yeah,
it's really cool.
It's such a vampire feel, right?
Yeah.
Well, because in your mind before that they're all vampires, it's kind of one of those things where I'm like, man, he's being pretty bold here.
Yeah.
And then they go in front of the mirror, and I'm like, oh, everyone's a vampire.
The mirror reveal. is actually really cool. Where it's just her dangling in air. It's like nobody here is a person.
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah.
So I kind of liked the opening when they're at the Brotherhood and they kind of have the James Bond cue.
Yeah.
I like it.
But the reason I don't like it or don't love it is because it's almost too close of a James Bond cue.
Oh, it's just a direct analog.
It's a straight that I'm like, y'all couldn't put your own little.
It's kind of like Constantine.
It was straight
little
up.
bit,
It was straight up shot as an homage.
Yeah.
That was the concept, and like it definitely feels, because even my wife was just like, what is this, Catholic Q?
Yeah. Right. That's exactly what
it's one of those things where it's like, I don't mind it just because I just love James Bond.
Yeah, it's cool.
When you have just like, oh, this is just James Bond and he's Q.
Yeah.
That's fine. But at the same time, like I could definitely tell at the time, like 2004, especially coming off of Pierce Brosnan's Bond, I could definitely see people not reacting kindly to it because they're just like, oh no, it's one of these.
It's another thing of like, it's the same idea we have sometimes where it's like you come so close to copying the original that like it's not as good as the original. You're just reminding me that Bond is better at this. Do something, because it's even the dynamic
put your own
of
spin on it or
like
something.
Van Helsing to Carl is James Bond to Q.
Yeah.
Like it's the same dynamic, like the way they're, his attitude, the way he's like picking up things like, what is this? You know, he's like, things are happening in the background. It's like, this was like lifted from a Roger Moore, James Bond.
Which I do like the payoff of the sun grenade.
Oh yeah.
When he's like, what do you mean you've been working all this time, you don't know what it does? No, I know what it does. I just don't know what it's for. I found out what it's for. And like they go out the window and they do like that wide shot of the
mansion.
palace
The whole
or whatever.
mansion.
And it's just, blah.
I'm like, you guys would have been dead if you were in there.
You need to get out that window too.
Yeah. Glad that didn't accidentally go off in anybody's bag this whole time.
Pocket.
Yeah.
In Carl's pocket.
So yeah, I think outside of Kate Beckinsale, her character Elena not really having, to me, enough agency or enough
She didn't have any agency, and she never like really
had some.
contributed.
It was the lack of contribution. I think.
She had the spice of this type of character,
Right.
And never really like followed through on it. They made a point in the trivia pointing out that she carries a sword and she actually never strikes an enemy with it.
Yeah,
For the whole movie.
Well, so the other
that like
thing
a
is too, because like
PG-13 thing?
Maybe.
it's interesting too because
Cut
she's
these little
coming
kid actors in half.
she's coming off of Underworld, and she had a ton of agency in that.
100%. She is literally
fights, big fights in that and stuff.
And that's what's wild to me is that like this dude watched Underworld, saw her like kicking tail in Underworld, and went like, I want that, but this time. None of that.
What if I get the B- version of that?
Yeah.
Maybe a C. I'd be okay. C's get degrees, you know.
And it's possible that just some of her stuff just got cut, just
Could have
for
been,
time, whatever, because it was already a very overstuffed film and very convoluted plot.
Speaking of cut for time and overstuff, they were actually going to include more of the Universal monsters in this film.
Oh, really? Like Invisible Man.
Well, there was
or
like a Swamp Thing cameo and some other stuff like that. And
Swamp
it's just,
Thing?
Yeah, right?
Like Creature of the Black Lagoon, you mean?
You know what I mean. Yeah. Of all the things to pull.
And DC's Swamp Thing is here.
But of all the things to pull out of the box and not be like, I don't know, the Mummy or the Invisible Man.
Yeah.
Like there's so many more classic. What about the Creature from the Black Lagoon?
Well, I
He's
think
not
that's
copyrighted by anybody, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of the
that.
problem with them probably hoping or thinking that they were going to get a second film out of this is because they were holding back on a lot of those things. But at the same time, like it's already an overstuffed movie.
Right.
Like we need to trim this down even more.
To me, that's so. Let's get into plot a little bit because that's the crux of the issue. I think is that like
It's
if
so
they could have
convoluted.
cut it down, then you would have had more room to breathe for character development between him and Elena. Because again, think of Zorro with like Antonio Banderas and Catherine Zeta-Jones and their characters and how much tension is there. And then when she finds out he's who he is,
because you really have three instances where they meet and have interaction with each other, and then like the final time they get to fight together.
Right. Yeah. So for this movie though, like the plot. So explain to me as best as you can what Dracula's plan is and what it hinges on.
So, okay, I actually think that's pretty easy.
Just go ahead.
So,
what? Yeah.
Dr. Frankenstein has the key to creating life from an artificial being or basically a dead being, correct?
Yeah, sure.
So Dracula wants to harness this energy, his knowledge, to create his kids because essentially both him and his wives are dead.
Sure.
Or undead, or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah, they're undead.
And
So their spawn is already dead.
yeah, so their spawn is already dead when it is created.
Sure.
I'm not going to say born because it's not born yet.
Right.
And then he is trying to utilize basically Kate Beckinsale's or Anna's family as just a catalyst for this, which I don't know why.
Catalyst in what way?
A catalyst to create, basically be a conduit.
Yeah. Like so the strapped in spot that they put Frankenstein monster in, right?
Yeah.
That is like the pass through.
Yeah.
I got that.
Dracula even says to the brother, I had hoped because it's his father he uses first who gets burned up in the process. I had hoped that adding werewolf to this family would be strong enough to take it. It's not. But we lost the monster at that point. He doesn't know the monster's gone. And then they find out the monster, okay, well, cool. This is the actual original intended
because Dr.
pass-through.
Frankenstein died because he didn't want to utilize his creation for Dracula's thing to just create thousands of little bats.
Sure. No, that all makes sense. I just wanted you to say it out loud so you could hear how convoluted it is.
I don't know. Again,
there was like 18 sentences. You couldn't say it in one or two sentences.
Oh, God, no.
You see what I'm saying?
It doesn't feel that complicated, honestly.
It's straightforward, but there's a lot of steps to it.
There's too many steps. So for me, it's there in a movie like this, especially a movie that's supposed to be funny or campy
or like a little popcorn.
And it's PG-13, so it's meant for at least a younger audience.
To me, you only get a couple of like reveals, right? Because what you need to have is a plot that's like basically from the front. We need Frankenstein because he's got the secret to life.
Yep.
Go. The whole plot with the brother and the werewolf is like, okay, that's extra. But the problem is they do these reveals that keep happening. So you keep having layers to the onion.
There's escalation.
It goes from like the
Rube
first
Goldberg
thing, as
stuff
you're
going
like,
on, yes.
Okay, wait, vampires can have kids? That's the first one. That it's like, I thought you just turned other vampires, So, and they don't really have any kind of scene that gets into like why him and the brides are laying eggs. What's happening with that? Like that's just kind of like, we watched Aliens. It was really cool. So let's just put a bunch of like,
hey, we've got these extra props left over from Aliens.
Right.
What, just hang from the ceiling?
It goes, so you're like, okay, I'm grokking that. All right. So they're procreating, which is different from most vampire lore, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, all right, but the children are being born, or they're not being born. You're like, well, yeah, because vampires aren't supposed to have kids. So how are you even pooping these things out? Like, what is happening here? So you're already kind of on the back foot from the traditional universal monster.
I didn't worry about any of that. It's like, I don't want to know.
Well, because again, then from there it goes into like, okay, so we're going to use the brother as the werewolf to do the thing.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, so they're taking his life essence and they're doing that and they're hoping, and then it doesn't work.
They're hoping that the
like,
regenerative abilities of the wolf
will do something, and then it doesn't work, and you're like, okay. And then they find Frankenstein. It's just like there's so many, it feels like stop-starts with Dracula's plan, whereas with a movie like this, especially if it's supposed to be campy and simple, it should be...
It's simple.
This
Pretty
is goal.
yeah.
I'm trying to get to it. Van Helsing's in my way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I will say, though, I do love how the whole mission for Van Helsing is to go help this family kill Dracula, because there was a promise made and none of them will make it into heaven if the line's extinguished. They can't fulfill the promise. And Van Helsing shows up. He's like, oh, don't worry. I'll get him to heaven. Come here, brother. You're dead. Yeah. Come here, sister. You're also dead. Heaven. Mission accomplished.
I did it. But yeah, it's not that the plot is hard to follow. It's that like there's just too many unnecessary layers of complexity.
It's like taking whole note. Like if you want a campy, you play whole notes.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you want to, play Beethoven, quarter, 16th, eighth, it's a lot of that to get to the same thing where you could have just done whole note, half note, whole note.
Right.
So I think it's one of those things where like the reason why at least you have the werewolf as another bad guy is because I think the logistics of making the brides as their flying form is a little bit too hard to do on a multi-step kind of like action set piece.
For sure, yeah.
So like you need to have something that's a little that everyone knows on shorthand is incredibly dangerous because it's a werewolf.
I don't have issues with the brother being the werewolf. I think the way that they handled it could have been a little different. Like basically, if they had introduced a wolf at the front,
again, the big problem here is if we could narrow the cast a little, and have a little more time with brother and sister to build that, make that relationship mean something to the audience, and then he's gone, and now he's the werewolf. Now it's a bigger deal that she's not trying to kill him.
If it's a reveal in the third act that the brother is the werewolf, like maybe we don't know he's the werewolf throughout the first half.
When we meet the sister, he's just been missing, and we don't know why.
And he turns back up, and it's like.
So I will say as much as we rag on the CGI, I think the transformation between werewolf and human to werewolves is actually quite good.
It's not,
So he deliberately went away from kind of the traditional werewolf transformation, which is the hair sprouting, and did it
ripping the skin off.
So like the beast within tearing the skin away.
I assume
it's
you guys
legit.
have never seen American Werewolf in London because it's a scary movie. This is the transformation from American Werewolf in London. It's basically the beast bursts out from within you, and then
but it's pretty legit. Like
it's
pretty good.
Having a seizure.
I'm not going to say it's like the best CGI ever,
but for the time, especially, it's good. But there's definitely a couple moments where, it's the same problem with all the CG. There's like some rubberiness to the movements or something, or like
we have good,
right? Yeah, it's like
there's a dip of it's like going from playing a game at 80 FPS and then it dips to 35.
Well, it's like there's like a couple of frames that if you would just take that frame. This would look
if we could just skip this quarter second somehow.
Just remove it like you did Van Helsing when he was on the trapeze. Let's get into the third act. Let's talk about it.
Oh, goodness.
So the thing that kills me is I can't stand when movies set a time limit on what the hero has to do to do the thing, unless it's set up properly throughout, like it's hinted at for like the whole film or whatever, where it does feel like because this movie still takes place over multiple days and the full moon has been out for multiple days.
So what was your thing earlier about that?
Well, so the whole issue there is you have have the brother transform on a full moon in Transylvania. They do a whole travel sequence on horseback from Transylvania to Budapest.
So we have to just assume that this is over a month?
Right, like that's what I'm saying. Is there is time frame there from when,
but it's nondescript, so we don't know.
It's unclear.
No, it's not clear, but you do have the opportunity for travel there, and it's at least better supported, but with like a travel with a little map montage or whatever, than it is like Indy jumps onto the side of the sub and like holds onto the sub for the. Do they just not submerge for the whole Mediterranean?
On the sub for a week?
Yeah, like, right, like
just holding his breath.
So for this one at least, because my wife had the same question, like, wait, but the full moon was just, I was like, they just traveled to Budapest. Fair, like by a horse, like this is.
But can you imagine like your entire plot of being able to fight the bad or fight the good guys is you just have to wait every month?
Oh yeah.
Like, can you just like it's, again, like whenever you think about it too hard, it just doesn't work.
Yeah,
but I agree with you that the timer thing would have. I think it would have made more sense if there had been a like, okay, with the brother being the werewolf, right? If there had been a scene where you don't know he's the werewolf and you're having that thing, and then he turns because of the full moon, and they make some kind of comment about like, oh man, it's a good thing we killed him with a silver bullet, blah, blah. Man, if anyone was bit by him, they've got 28 days until it's time. And then Hugh Jackman's got the wound, and he don't tell anybody.
Pulls the jacket over or whatever.
Right, and then you have like a timer going, and now you can have other stuff happen throughout the movie. It felt like the last minute they're like, and guess what? You got till midnight. What do you mean? The 12th stroke of midnight.
Yeah, I know.
Was the clock accurate? Like
that was real precise on that. Right. Yeah, like the whole like full moon, like the 12th stroke of midnight. It's like, buddy, the full moon's still going to be out there. Like,
right.
I mean, if it was in the middle of the sky, it doesn't move that fast.
What if we were in a different time zone? Would it still be? Would it be 11 or like?
Yeah, and then like the fight with him and Dracula as a werewolf, like, is fine.
It has a couple of moments where you're like, "Oh yeah," and then a lot of stuff where you're just kind of like,
"Oh no."
Can we bring back him just being kind of menacing and talking to each other? Because
that's good stuff, and that's kind of the thing. Like the Gabriel plot line feels like that should have been elaborated on in another movie.
It
just hinted
drops
at
out
in
of
this
nowhere.
one.
Yeah, it's a little like that should have been a reveal, like a end of trilogy, or an Empire Strikes Back style. I am your father.
Because that's the thing is like, I feel that they just stuffed a little bit too much in there to try and make it a full like.
Oh, they stuffed the crap out of this movie.
For me, the third act falls apart because it's like they've set themselves up the whole way with they haven't set up enough in the first 2/3 to pay off what they're trying to go for in the last.
The whole problem with the last third is rope swings.
It's rope swings.
Calm down,
we're like the monkeys and
okay.
Crystal Skull.
Now, I will say we put on like a honest trailers of that like just the other day, and when they hit that point, I was like, man, this is so much worse than I remember from like a year ago. Like, God, who wrote that?
It doesn't age well at all.
No.
But to Van Helsing, right? Like it's. I think it's because you've got so many moving parts that by the time you hit the third act, and it's mostly CG.
Yeah,
it's like
that's just like
get on with it.
It's incredibly ungrounded at this point because the whole castle CG. They're swinging around like
they're flying
Tarzan.
around.
Now I will say, and we haven't talked about him at all, and I moved off my notes because I was planning for other things. But
Igor?
Yes.
Oh yeah, that dude's from the Mummy too. That's
he's played. It's Kevin O'Connor.
Yeah.
So he and
he does really good.
He does good. Yeah, he's
Stephen
fun.
Sommers a lot. He's a really fun character, and it's another one of those little pieces that shows up where it's like, this is really good. If we had less of some of these other characters, we could explore this a little more.
Yeah,
we could do a little more here.
I mean, that's kind of the theme of the whole movie.
As a henchman, at least it's a little more acceptable. It's not like we need to build chemistry.
He's got some good little like one-liners and sarcasm.
Him and the Undertaker in the village.
Oh, I love the Undertaker.
We're just
I'm
like
so sad that he just got killed for some reason. Yeah.
And like with Igor, they kind of made him into Igor and Renfield. They kind of took two characters from Dracula and Frankenstein and kind of put him into one.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, that's a smart use of time. You don't have time for two sidekicks. You've got the one.
Yeah.
But then again, they didn't leave enough room for us to really explore his whole deal and like why is he serving Dracula?
He said it right at the beginning.
Fun.
He was like,
he pays more money.
He pays me more money.
Sure. Yeah.
And it was at least still fun. Like every time he was on screen, he'd have a line. Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah.
But the to me, it's like it starts to fall apart with the rope swings, and then it falls apart with the
rope
fact
swings are
that
so bad.
the fight.
Tossing the needle in the air. Like, what if she just misses and it stabs her? And now, like, she's cured of vampires. She did, or werewolfism. Lycanthropy or whatever it's called.
I got wolfitis.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of just like.
But you get to the fight with Dracula, which feels a little bit too drawn out and too reliant on CG. Like you're saying, like, when they're talking, it's like
great.
better.
Yeah.
So it's like they should have. I guess in hindsight they probably know, but like stuck with that longer and had the fight, and then. When she dies, it's so anticlimactic of like, so wait, what happened? Did he sit on her? Like, yeah, because it's quick. And then she's laying there dead.
They
and
needed
like,
one of those where instead of like her just laying on a couch, like, is she just sleeping or what? He needed to like slam her into a spike or something. Like, impale her where she has a moment of,
or you hear like a terrible crunch.
Yeah.
Or, you know what I mean? So it just kind of
I was like, oh, she died.
And I wonder if that was I wonder if that was a PG-13 limitation as well, where they're like trying to pull it back.
It definitely could have been. So it's funny too.
But
like,
the other problem is like, why did she even have to die?
So
because Van Helsing is sending this family to heaven.
But they could have sent the rest of the family.
So it was funny. So there's two parts to this.
Yeah.
So as I was watching the movie, because I don't remember the original, and I was like, oh, because she, like, Kate Beckinsale's in 2 different vampire movies. This is just the Kate Beckinsale cinematic universe, and then she dies at the end. I'm like, okay, she died, and then I was
she becomes a vampire and goes to underworld.
Well, so it's funny too, because then like. As like, she dies and I'm like, oh, she did die. And then I'm like, oh, they're totally going to superimpose her face over the clouds. There it is.
The only thing I remember from my original theater viewing was the face in the clouds. Because when I watched it for the first time in 2004, in the theater, we're sitting there, they superimpose her face. And I was like, Jesus Christ, like out loud in the theater. So just like, what are we doing?
When we were watching this, as this is resolved, they have the pyre going or thing. My wife was like, oh, are they going to show her as a ghost? And I was like, I started laughing. It's so much worse.
She's in the smoke.
It's so much worse. Because it's just this, it's not, like, think about how they do the send-off for, like, Binks at the end of Hocus Pocus.
Yeah,
right. That one's pretty good.
Yeah.
This is just the disembodied head. Like,
well, because it's like you see the rest of the family that we've never seen, even like a picture. We're like, is that Nona? Who is that? Is that your Pap? Who's that guy? And then she's like normal sized, and then she zooms up to full face size, and I'm like, what is this?
So all I can think about whenever
God's cameraman is like, oh, here we go. Here's the close.
Punch in.
All I can think about when I see that is the stupid Far Side comic of Captain Kirk and the Enterprise encounter the disembodied head of Zsa Zsa Gabor.
Oh yeah. So yeah, that was wild.
So like my wife and I were watching this, and like at this point we're so done. We're just like this movie. Like we were there. We were really enjoying this movie until the final act, and then this, and I was like, oh no.
They're like, baby, if you're already going downhill, just keep going.
So my wife, we were watching
drill, baby, drill.
This is the thing I remember crystallized in my mind is that image of her in the clouds. So we get to the end, and the funeral pyre's going, and my wife's looking, and then he's like following the smoke with his eyes, and she's not saying anything. My wife's looking. I go, what's in the smoke? I go, what do you think's in the smoke? She's like, I don't know what's happening. And then like when it comes up, she goes, oh my God. And then it just keeps going. And I was cackling next to her on the couch. Because she's just like on the edge of her seat, like, what could they possibly do that's worse than what's already happened, How can we go lower than the basement?
Oh, my jaw hurts.
Yeah.
No, up to that point, I'd actually forgotten about it, and I saw them prepping like the pyre and stuff, and I was like, "Oh no,
it all came flashing back."
Yeah,
Well,
PTSD, the Vietnam PTSD.
It's funny too because like just because of everything that's come before it on this film, that there's no way they could resist it.
Oh, well, there's no one on this set said maybe we should. No, just keep going. It's gold. Just do it.
I remember
just do it.
In theater the first time seeing it, thinking, there's no way she's dead. Like, he just sat on her for a minute. What are you talking about? And, like, they can bring people back to life. Frankenstein exists.
Yeah.
They're going to have, like, she's going to get brought back, or there'll be, like,
Bride of Frankenstein.
Or it's going to end with him, like, I know a doctor that can put this together or something, you know? And then it's just, nope, funeral pyre. So in the theater, you're like, oh, they just killed her?
She's dead.
And then you see him look at the smoke, you're like, what's happening? And then, like, again, you're like, okay, well, you've lost the plot times 10.
Well, then you have just Frankenstein's monster just on a boat. And he just looks back
on 3 logs.
They put like the 600-pound man on 4 logs and a string.
You would think that they would have gotten him a better jacket.
Yeah, it's like
or maybe not send him out to sea.
like,
he's partially electricity. Did you see his head?
Yeah.
He's got sparks in it.
I don't roll myself.
If he splashes himself, he could die.
Barbados, here I come.
Like, can you imagine?
You're not gonna make it.
You know, you're composed of dead parts of people that came out of graves. I'm sure salt water will do wonders for
it's just
you.
lovely. Yeah.
It's just preservatives. It's fine.
Yeah. Also, he couldn't stick around for the service. Come on.
Right?
Yeah, he's like,
He's got places to be.
I guess not.
You won't make it to Bermuda if you don't start rowing right now.
Gotta go. I really gotta go. I'd love to stay to see the whole smoke in the clouds thing, but I gotta get out of here.
The heaven that my frame is denied.
Yeah.
Okay, well we that was good. We hit that one nicely. Final piece here.
Yeah.
Favorite moment.
Oof. Let me think.
Now we've just been going on. I want to hear your peak moment. It could be best or worst. Like just the moment that's going to stick with you.
honestly, my favorite moment is when they just have the initial travel montage of them going to Transylvania, because you have like the big sweeping shots of the mountains with Alan Silvestri's music. There's no dialogue.
It's got some Lord of the Rings feel to it.
Yeah, and I'm just like, I'm here for this. Whatever the rest of this movie is, I'm probably good.
I actually like the carriage chase scene in the middle where they're trying to go to Budapest.
Yeah,
with all that.
and the switch.
You know, what's
The switch
what's
and it
amazing
flips over,
is
yeah.
we've joked about all this other stuff. We haven't even gone into the idea of a 6-horse carriage almost making the jump over the canyon.
Oh, dude, those horses are Transylvanian horses. They're the fastest horses around. They got it, no
horses.
problem. Yeah.
Well, again, at midair,
That was the most realistic part of the
my wife
movie.
goes, surely the carriage doesn't. Okay, good. It's not going to make it.
Yeah.
What's your favorite part, Steven?
Honestly, just the music.
The music's
Just
great.
Yeah.
like I've
Music's
had
great.
some of this music in a playlist now for years.
Yep.
Because it just bangs.
Yeah.
I don't think I've listened to this music since I saw it. Like, I was the whole time going like, oh yeah, okay. Mm-hmm. And I had to look it up midway through the movie. I was like, Alan Silvestri.
Yeah.
There it is.
Boy.
That's what's happening. Because I was like, who did they get? Because like this movie's on a different wavelength than the goodness of this music. What's happening here? Somebody lose a poker game?
Yep. I think that is a that music can save films.
Some films.
But it can't save every film.
It can only carry so much.
It can only, yeah.
At some point,
It's putting all the weight on the back.
Like,
And it's like at some point it's gonna crumble.
honestly, if the final third is just mediocre,
Yeah.
this is a pretty decent film.
Yeah.
But I think it's the whole issue of you can start out poorly if you stick the landing.
Yeah.
And people will be like, oh yeah, like that was a
if
good
you- if you
recovery.
don't stick the
If you don't stick-
landing-
everybody remembers.
Yep.
It's no good.
Everyone remembers Kate Beckinsale's disembodied head in the clouds.
Yeah, that was literally your party. Like, I didn't remember Van Helsing riding off into the sunset because I was too mad at the fact they put her head in the clouds.
Oh man.
Alrighty. Well, I do think on that note, that is all the time we have to talk about Van Helsing, but we always have plenty of time to talk about our Patreon. For just $1,
Uno dollar.
you can help support the show.
Yep.
You gain access to all of our bonus content, commentaries, Patreon picks, polls.
Yeah.
We have a ton of really cool bonus episodes that we do, guaranteed once a month. They're always different than what we do on the show here.
We actually have some Halloween themed ones. In
do.
years past, we've ranked Halloween candy.
Andy, well, made myself sick on that. Let me tell you.
That's like a tier
we do
list.
like horror movie introduction kind of stuff.
Yeah, I recommended some. That's from a couple years ago, so it's not fully up to date. Still a lot of bangers on that list, though.
The movies didn't go bad.
They didn't go bad. They kept. They were in the freezer.
Unless you're Van Helsing. Then.
This one, I don't think this one came out of the wrapper right.
I was like, how can you go bad when you come out rotten? Come on,
It's
now.
like whenever you open up like a Reese's and it's like already like the chocolate's already like dried and crumbly.
That's not where I didn't know where that was going.
I didn't either.
When have you ever opened a Reese's and been disappointed by what you opened?
Yes, but yes. If it's dried and crumbly, that would be bad. If it was just sand inside, that would also be another bad one. But yeah, for $1, you get access to all of our bonus content. You can participate in our Patreon picks, polls. You get access to our commentaries. We mentioned Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull in this episode. We did a commentary for that.
They forced me to watch it for the first time.
It's a great commentary. So yeah, check it out. It's the most direct way to support us, and we love all of our patrons.
We sure do. They are beautiful, wonderful, intelligent, discerning people. But as always, follow us on socials, leave us a review wherever you're listening now, and share us with a friend. Until next time, I'm Steven.
I'm Andrew.
And I'm Ryan.
And every spoiler was intended.